evening and welcome to Access Iowa City, a program about disability and independent living movements in southeast Iowa. Access Iowa City is brought to you through collaborations with the Extended Dream Foundation, Center for Disabilities and Development, and all the folks here at Public Access Television, Channel 18. I'm Terry Cunningham, member of the Johnson County Mental Health Planning Task Force. I think I just renamed them, but oh well. And a person who's lived with a significant disability for over 41 years. Tonight we're thrilled to have our local elected officials to the state legislature here, including the newest member who leaves the Board of Supervisors in the process. Welcome to y'all.
Thank you.
And of course, my co-host Keith Ruff.
Yeah.
And it's possible we'll be joined with 3 more folks to fill our empty seats, and we'll take a quick pause and slip them in as that occurs. All right. Well, there's little doubt this is going to be a very interesting session, to say the least, I think, with all of the MHDS redesign issues, with the Health Care Act issues, and all the other things that just seem to pop up to make your lives interesting. First question. Brain injury has seen reduced support by some counties since the advent of the MHDS redesign system. This has led to even more demand for assistance from Iowans with brain injuries. They try to navigate life after brain injury with cognitive and other challenges. Are you supportive of a modest increase in funding to brain injury services program and the Department of Health to support the demand for services such as neuro-research facilities? And to clarify a little, brain injury has been promised but not had services delivered for a number of years. And it's been the, wait for 5 years and we'll give you what you need. And 5 years comes along and it's, well, wait a couple other years. And basically they're sick and tired of it. And it's time to deliver. Where do you guys stand on that?
I'll go ahead and start. First, Terry and Keith, thanks for having us all on your program to be able to talk about disability issues as we approach this session, so it's great to be here. I think you've laid it out pretty well, Terry. It's been quite a challenge for the state to get its hands around, or its policy mind around the need to provide financial support through, our county state mental health system for people with brain injuries. We have a number of counties that on their own have gone out and begun to provide services without really much state support at all, including Johnson County, and our supervisors should really be commended for getting out there. With the new system, the new regional system that's being put in place, I think there's an awareness that people around the state want brain injury services. There's been some reluctance to make that part of the core services that are going to be part of whatever region is going to have to provide, because there's an uneasiness about what the potential costs might come forward. But there's no question that we need to do better. I'm supportive of more funding for this. As we approach the legislative session on all funding issues, the state is in a quite healthy position financially. We have about $700 million above and beyond our cash reserve and our emergency funds all being full. So we have the resources, and I think it's going to be important for the disability community and brain injury folks in particular to be quite active in this upcoming session to get our attention on their needs.
It would be a lot less costly if they got the services they need now than later.
Yeah, I think that's right. The research shows that. The other thing I think we hear from the Brain Injury Association is we have a lot of returning veterans. coming back with war-related brain injuries, and that's a new population that I'm not sure we're all ready to manage, and it's going to take more resources. And with that, I think probably the veterans groups and the like will be another advocate for funding in this area, which will be helpful.
Well, I'm also supportive in terms of the veterans. I met with the Johnson County veteran representative yesterday, and we're concerned about the number of veterans returning from Afghanistan and Iraq, but also there's a number of veterans that didn't have brain injury identified from previous wars. And we're going back to Korea and Vietnam and the Gulf War in '91. So we're kind of revisiting the challenges veterans have, but also Bridget from Coralville is one of the top advocates for people with brain injuries, and she's done a marvelous job at the state capitol telling her story. I think the latest REC estimates actually put, I don't want to use the word surplus, but the availability for us of funds for us to invest in Iowa at around $900 million. And I believe if we're closing in on almost the $1 billion mark, then there certainly isn't a reason that we can give a healthy influx of investment dollars to the brain injury.
I too am supportive. The groups that have been meeting on this for the last 2 years, I think trying to flush all this out and figure out where we go from here. And Joe has been a part of that, so I appreciate the time and the work that he's put in, and think that there is money there, and so we shouldn't let that hold us back from including brain injury. I think there are a lot of people out there. Joe referred to the regions and how this is all shaping up, and I think there's a lot of counties, and Sally can probably address that who better than I, but counties that are nervous, and how is this all going to fit together, and I think hopefully for those maybe the counties that have been underserved in the past, by regionalizing you're going to get services that can get to people who didn't have them before. So hopefully, as this is all being put together, we are taking steps forward to reach those folks that need services, and then there should be the dollars there to follow it through. But I think that's also what we should be fearful of, because the state makes these suggestions for huge changes and then doesn't always follow through or changes their mind halfway. So I think your role, not only to advocate for the changes, is hold our feet to the fire and make sure that the state does what they tell you they're going to do.
And I guess I would agree with everything that's been said about putting some additional dollars into brain injury. I guess I feel one of the positive things about mental health redesign is the fact that core services were going to be uniform across the state of Iowa. For too long, we've had this kind of hodgepodge of a system. If you had a brain injury in Johnson County, you got services. If you had that same injury just across the border in another county, you didn't get services. And that just simply wasn't right, or there wasn't help for the services. You could get services, but there certainly wasn't the financial help for it. So I think that's going to be one of the positive things, is that no matter where you live, you're going to be able to have services provided. I went to a brain injury forum, and I was quite frankly surprised, when they talked about how many years it takes to get on disability services and apply for SSI. And, when they talk about brain injury, how important it is that people get those services right away, that you don't wait. That the chances of better success are the faster you get services. So I think that that's another reason why we need to step up to the plate and start providing additional dollars for brain injury.
Well, and I think you've also nailed one of the areas in this that gets scariest too is core services. And we've not seen exactly what they are yet, but if in the definitions of core services, it's decided instead of raising the floor, we're going to lower the roof, and brain injury is still not going to be considered in core services. As of July of 2013, developmental disabilities are not mentioned in covered areas. All of a sudden, you're going to have an incredible group of people who no longer have services. And as we all know, the reality of it is you can say, okay, you guys are no longer eligible for services. That doesn't mean they don't still need services. And as a result, what's most likely to happen is the use of the criminal justice system is going to increase. There's going to be more homelessness. There's going to be more trips to emergency rooms and all this kind of stuff. Or there's going to be more folks who end up in an institution, which is going to create an incredible problem for the state of Iowa because they've signed an agreement with the feds to reduce the dependence on facility-based services, and that the percent of folks served in a home and community-based setting will increase while the services provided in facilities will decrease. And agreeing to do that gets them a higher reimbursement rate. But if that doesn't happen, that's very bad. So, you know, what do we do for all those folks who on July 1st suddenly have no services? And I mean, a year or so ago, Johnson County went through something like this when we had a huge budget deficit, and the MHDS Planning Council had to help in cutting that deficit. And that's a heart-wrenching experience as you go through and cut things, because you can't just do a percentage cut. You know, if somebody has residential services, you can't say, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, you can stay here. Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, you're on your own. You know, or you're in some other kind of a program. So you're cutting huge gaps, and once you get down to the point where you're literally questioning what's the fewest number of people who are gonna die if we cut this service? And you really get down to that. Or, you know, how many more people do we put under the bridges if this happens? Or how many people, as I say, go into a nursing home, do something to go into prison? Because, you know, contrary to popular belief, folks with mental health and disability issues are a very creative group. And if their services disappear, they will find a way to get them. And as they say, whether that ends up by being multiple visits to an emergency room that forces a commitment, or committing a small enough crime that they know they'll get X number of days in jail and have 3 hots and a cot for that period, it just makes the money come out of somebody else's piece of the pie. You know, the dollars, and in a lot of cases, unfortunately, that piece of the pie is the most expensive piece in the pie.
And in the long run, when you let things go like that, you're going to pay more money than it's worth when you could have stopped it before it started.
Well, the intention of the redesign is not to put people in county jails or have more people under bridges, and it's to try and make a better system. As Sally pointed out, you know, we want to have the ability, no matter where you live in the state, that you're going to have access to a set of services. Right now we have a system where there's some counties that do a lot, like Johnson County, and some that don't do nearly as much. And we're going to try and make sure that everybody has the basic core services. And that's still under consideration what that's going to look like. I mean, I think the immediate challenge is in places where you do have brain injury services, and now Johnson's going to enter in with 6 other counties. Will brain injury services be available in all those 6 other counties, or will brain injury services be available in none of the counties? All right, so I think those are, or developmental disability services. So those are questions ahead. I think one of the wild cards out there, and it's something that hasn't been decided yet, and it's going to be one of the big decisions of the legislative session that will bring more resources, because this is really, if the bottom line is about money. All right, are we going to make this a priority? Because we've got the money, but the whole Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act is going to suddenly provide coverage of a payer for about 150,000 adults, that some of whom are in this system. And I think it's when that happens, there's going to be some money freed up, some local money freed up, and some state money freed up that could flow to making sure that this brain injury issue is addressed. Notwithstanding, we do have a surplus. We could make some improvement right now, but I think there's going to be a big fight around whether or not we're going to expand the Medicaid program and take advantage of what is a terrific opportunity for providers who are currently not being paid, like hospitals, people, 150,000 people that don't have access to anything health insurance-wise. But there's a big political disagreement. The governor's opposed to it. I think he's going to stay opposed to it, and we're going to really have to work with all the providers, all the constituents to make the case that this is really, really an important thing for our state.
Well, the key is the Medicaid expansion and the decision that is made on that in the next year. Frankly, my jury on the mental health redesign is still out because we didn't put both pieces together as we left session this year. And that was, we did the redesign, which was a leap of faith, and then our faith was somewhat damaged by the fact that we didn't put the money behind it in the initial year. So county supervisors are scrambling to put together the regions and provide hopefully more than adequate services. I think what we're really going to have to look at, what's key for people, is individuals, families, and the counties have to be ready on January 14th to bring their concerns to Des Moines and say this is the consequences, unintended or intended, what's happening to the individuals and families and what services they're getting or not getting right now. We can't sit for too long and hope that it looks good by the time that we leave Des Moines. We're going to have to start right away, January 14th, in the push to make sure that the Medicaid expansion does take place. And it's just a reminder to people, too, the Medicaid expansion, the Medicaid dollars we're talking at the federal level are our dollars that we paid in. This is not a gift. This is the monies that everyone earned and invested at the federal level, and it's coming back to serve Iowans. So we heard through the election cycle about the 47%, who believes in what. But this is actually money that's earned by Iowans that would come back to Iowa to help serve Iowans.
I hope when the legislature enacts a bill that they're getting the right input from the people it covers. Because if you don't ask the people what they need and produce a bill and it doesn't work, where are we then? So please ask for input.
It's a very good point, Ethan. And again, hopefully people watching, and I know you two will give us input as the session starts, but we certainly want to hear more. Again, with Bridget and listening to her story in Coralville, it's a learning curve for all of us, especially for me too. One of the things that I learned in listening to her story is not only how it affected her and her struggles to get back, because she herself, as a healthcare professional, PNP, and practiced with for a number of years, but also the effect on her family, because her family struggled because they were investing time helping her and keeping the family together, and other family members are struggling on their jobs because of the time commitment. It's something all of us, again, I learned many things in the last 6 months that I didn't realize it wasn't clicking with me. It's not only her or a person affected, it really affects the family.
Exactly. Thank you. That's a good start. The ADA celebrated its 22nd anniversary this year, which means 21 years ago, all the ADA requirements were supposed to have been initiated. Unfortunately, they all weren't. March 13th of this year was the drop-dead date that convenience stores were supposed to have gas pumps accessible. Not all gas pumps. One gas pump at each station was to be accessible for folks with disabilities, accessible for them to contact somebody inside the station to let them know they were there waiting for assistance. That's not happening. They just have pretty much dug in their heels and aren't doing it. Hy-Vee, a couple years ago, got an award because they chose to make their stations accessible by purchasing a call button that extends out toward the vehicle, and you can reach out, hit the button, it signals a bell inside that lets the folks know you need help. Would you be in favor of adding to either the DOT or the Fire Marshal's office, which I understand are the two departments now who check gas pumps for weights and measures or safety, the responsibility of determining accessibility? Now, there's all kinds of different ways to do that in the law. You know, the height is supposed to be this high for depending on the pump so that you can reach in it, and it's supposed to set here, and yada, yada, yada. But the must-have feature is that you can pull up to a pump and stick your arm out to hit whatever button is required. It can't be expected that somebody with a disability who pulls up to a pump has to park 5 feet away from the pump so they can get out of their vehicle, maneuver between their vehicle and the pump to push a button. That's not acceptable. If you can't reach it from your car, the pump isn't accessible. I don't care what level the buttons are or where the slot to put your credit card in. I don't understand how people can imagine that somebody is going to park 5 feet away from the pump, and if their vehicle has a lift, got to put the pump or the lift up so somebody doesn't clip it going by, and more importantly, you have to say a prayer before you get out that somebody doesn't clip you as you're on your lift coming by. I don't know. I've never seen anybody using a wheelchair use the actual pump. You pick up the handle, which is not a light item. If you use a manual wheelchair, you kind of need both hands to wheel. I'm pretty sure that it's not pick up pump, put pump in lap, wheel over. Somehow I don't think that would be real safe. Some of us, couldn't do that, or with the different kinds of gas caps on, couldn't get a gas cap off anyway. All they would have to do to solve this would be to put a sign on the pump that says, welcome to whatever. Between this hour and this hour, there's more than one person working, and we'd be happy to pump your gas for you. To either have an accessible button out that could be reached to push it and notify them, or to have the phone number where they could call inside, and that's not, some folks don't think that's the best method, but, or it's also supposedly a satisfactory option to either honk or blink your lights. You can sit out at a gas pump for a long time honking and blinking your lights, and you're liable to annoy the other customers.
I was going to say, might end up getting in a fight at the gas
Not
pump.
getting anybody to help.
Are there any stations or stores that provide that service right now, where someone will come out and
Hy-Vees.
Hy-Vee?
And do you have a number of how many Hy-Vees in the state with gas stations are operating like that?
I don't off the top of my head.
I was just
I
curious.
have it accessible.
Is that all Hy-Vees then, or
Almost.
almost? Okay.
So I assume when they build a new one, that's just an automatic thing that they are doing.
But you said this is the law, this is the federal law, that they were supposed to provide
Yeah,
this.
long ago.
Well, if they're not complying with the law,
Well,
then.
And right now, we're working on doing surveys of stations and getting the reports in. But that's moving very slowly. It would be, and I don't understand why. I would think if you get a complaint on a company that has, say, 1,800 stores in a several state area, and they're not meeting compliance, that if you drop the hammer on that company, other ones are going to go, uh-oh, time to get this done. And there are a few stations out there where the owners who own 5, 10, 15 stores have also gone ahead and gotten this on their own. But if you drive by the station at Waterfront, or if you drive by the station at on the Loop, you'll see this big fuel call button that you can reach out and push.
And how did you find out that Hy-Vee had this pump? Is that part of the problem too? People may not be aware of businesses that are offering.
Where they can go.
We happen to know a guy who lives in Illinois and sells these, and he got Hy-Vee to commit to this and told us about it, and Keith and I work on the annual ADA celebration, and so for that, not this last year but the year before, we presented them with the award. But there have been some articles on it, and oh boy, we've finished this segment. 2 questions, but very good questions. So we will close out today and see everybody next week. And thanks to all of you. Thanks everybody at home.
And
Thanks, Keith.